Hey guys, it's Alyssa here over at Books and Cats, and today I will be doing my August wrap-up. Not gonna lie, I thought August was gonna be just another not that great reading month. I moved this month again, and there was just so much that had to get done in the very beginning of August. I'm like, I'm probably gonna be tired, just not gonna have the energy, who knows what August will bring us. August overall wasn't the greatest month for me, but then again, what is? I honestly, I read so much. I read 8 things in August, which is just incredible. I'm so proud of myself. I read so many full-length books. I cannot remember the last time I've read this many regular-length novels. Especially lately, a big chunk of my reading has come from graphic novels and stuff like that, and I'm just so freaking proud of myself that I read so many things. So let's get on to it, shall we? So the first thing that I read in August was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This book, I've been wanting to read this book for so long, and I never owned it, but I kept seeing people mention it, and I was like, I just want to read this book so bad. The cover, the Penguin Classics cover, just gets to me, and I'm like, I want to read it. I want to read it so bad. So I was like, you know what? Just to get me motivated, I'm gonna borrow it from the library through Overdrive. This book, oh my goodness, it was definitely one of the best books I read this month. It was so unlike anything I have ever read before. I would call it, I heard a term for it that's psychological horror, which I think is pretty good, but I don't know. Because I first heard that this was horror, and I'm like, you know what? Horror is not my genre. Me and horror just don't meet each other often. So I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't know if we're gonna mesh well. From the first page, I was like, oh my god, what's going on? What is happening? And I just thought everything was so good. I liked how unreliable of a narrator it was. It got to me, man. I'm still thinking about it. I am still thinking about how good this book was. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. You're probably wondering, wait, if you loved it so much, why'd you only give it 4 stars? The ending wasn't my favorite. I had in my mind that it was gonna end a certain way, and then it didn't. It didn't end in a worse way, but it just, I don't know, the ending was kind of, while also kind of cool, also a little lackluster, I thought. It might just be because of my own expectations of what I thought was gonna happen or what, but I just felt a little unsatisfied. Honestly, it was so short. It was around 200 pages, and it was just such a good read. It was such a good read, and honestly, I love how much I'm thinking about it. I love when books do that. The second book that I read in August was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Now, I have definitely read this book before. It was a reread. Chloe over at Brunette Bibliophile, she has a traveling book for it, and I was like, I'm down for it, because I haven't reread it since it first came out, which was I think 5 years at this point. It was such a good reread. It was really cool because I remembered a lot more than I thought I would, which was very nice. But I guess the sequence of when things happen, so the placement of the timeline overall was just totally messed up in my head. I was like, wait, this happens when? So it was definitely nice to do reread. It was just so good. I loved it just as much the second time around. I was so concerned that I would not love it as much as I loved it the first time. I was so worried. I'm like, oh my god, this is one of my favorite series ever. What happens if I don't like the first book as much as I used to? And I loved it. I loved every part of it. It gave me the same feelings that it did when I first read it, and I got more detail, definitely, because obviously I've read up to Cress, so I know more of what happens, so it's foreshadowing. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know she mentioned it this early on in the series. Phenomenal. 5 out of 5 stars. Probably always will be, because I freaking love that series. Okay, so the next book that I finished in August was Gemma by Amy Kaufman and J. Kristoff. So here's the thing. I started this book in June, read about, I don't know, 200 pages then, and then everything got hectic again, and I just didn't have the time to devote to this, because basically how I had read Illuminae was I read it in one sitting, hands down. I didn't get up, and sure enough, when I picked this back up and finished it, I finished the rest of the 400 pages in one day. And I don't do that y'all, I don't finish books in like, I don't finish huge chunks in one sitting, but with this series, I have to, because it just, there's no down points. You just have to keep reading. Like, you have to keep finding out what happens next. I loved this book. I loved it. I liked it even better than Illuminate, which I didn't think was going to happen, because I saw a lot of people didn't like it nearly as much as Illuminate. And then I read this and I'm like, okay, agree to disagree, because this was even better. This was better than Illuminate. I thought it started off a lot easier. Maybe it's just because I'm used to the format and I knew what to expect. But with Illuminate, it took me a solid 150 to 200 pages to get in. This bad boy, I was in it from the get. I was like, yes, give it to me now. I need it. This book gave me all of the feelings. It was so good. And like with Illuminate, there had been moments when I kind of got annoyed with the characters a little bit, not gonna lie. But it's still a favorite book of mine. And this one didn't happen with this one, which makes it even better. There wasn't a moment in this book where I was like, okay, y'all are like fighting in space. Can you just not? Like, there wasn't a moment like that. I was just so into what everybody was doing, and it just, I loved every moment of it. I loved it. I loved it. Hannah and Nick are my actual children, and I love them, and no one can take them away from me because they are my babies and I love them. I can't wait for the third book to come out in March. I am here. I am ready. I am mentally prepared to finish this series. The next thing that I finished was a graphic novel called Joyride by Jackson Lansing. I hated this, honestly. I just did not care for it. It was an arc that I had gotten from NetGalley a while ago, and I was like, you should probably finish this now. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars because, like, it wasn't horrible. Like, there weren't big things that I detested. It just overall wasn't good. Like, the storyline was boring. Nothing happened, which is so, like, surprising because it's like a graphic novel and usually it's like doom 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 doom. But my goodness, this was so freaking boring. You didn't get anywhere. All you got was some lame character backstory, and I know they're probably just trying to set it up for the series, but how are you going to set it up for a series when the first one is terrible and doesn't interest me whatsoever? Like, the characters were half annoying, half just like, okay, totally forgettable. Can't even remember any of their names because I literally couldn't care less. Like, the artwork wasn't the worst in the world, but it wasn't like so breathtaking where I was like, oh my gosh, I would read this again just for the artwork, because I've totally done that before. It just all around was like so lackluster. The next book that I finished was Mr. Kiss and Tell by Rob Thomas and Jennifer Graham. This is the second book in the Veronica Mars spin-off book series. I loved it. It wasn't as good as the first book, mostly because I felt like the mystery element wasn't that surprising or new. Sorry if that cut off weird, but I got a phone call. Anyway, so yeah, I felt like this wasn't as as the first book, so that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but I still enjoyed it. I'm hoping they're gonna make more, but I don't think they are because it's been 3 years since this came out, and I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna make more. You've watched Veronica Mars. Highly recommend these. They probably would be confusing if you didn't, because there's a lot of like name dropping and all of that stuff that happens, and if you're not familiar with the series, you're just like, how am I supposed to know who these people are? I love Veronica Mars. What can I say? I can't get enough of her. The next thing that I read was The Little Red Wolf by Emile. I can't even pronounce that name because I know it's French. But anyway, this is a graphic / children's book retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and my goodness, I freaking loved this. It was another arc that I got through NetGalley, and I was like, you know, let's just give it a shot. Let's just give it a shot. I freaking loved this. It was unlike any other retelling of The Little Red Riding Hood that I've ever read before. The artwork was was absolutely breathtaking. It was so beautiful. Like, the artwork alone is worth it to read it, just to look at it. But the story was so good. Like, it was actually, like, shocking and stuff I wasn't expecting. And the ending, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Which I love retellings. It's definitely a trend now, and it's definitely getting a little old to me. So if you're looking for a graphic novel fairy tale retelling, I highly recommend this. It is so good, it is so beautiful, and honestly, it kept me on my toes a little bit, which I was a little shocked by, because graphic novels, that is hard anymore. The next thing that I read was Lady Stuff by Lauren Brantst. Basically, this is the typical internet comics. I don't know exactly what they're called, but if you know Sarah Anderson, I think is her name, Sarah Scribbles, it's basically like that. I don't think this was as good as Sarah Scribbles. I personally found Sarah Scribbles to be a little bit funnier for this type of comic, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The last thing that I read in August was Park Bench by Christopher Shabbat. This was another one that was a little lackluster, not gonna lie. It was interesting. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Now that sounds like a really low rating, but it was interesting because it is a graphic novel completely told with like no dialogue, no writing, no nothing, no words, just all told through pictures, which is really cool. But that being said, the artwork just wasn't there for me, and it wasn't descriptive enough for me to follow along easily. Just fell flat. Just fell really flat. And like the art style like combined with the fact that it was in black and white was just too much simplicity for not having enough of other things. Like if it had been simplistic and had words, then I'd be like, okay, we're fine. But the fact that it didn't have any words and it was in black and white and it was simplistic, I'm like, I'm not vibing with this story. The overall plot was both cool and boring at the same time. Like the way that it came full circle was cool. Like the beginning and then basically the ending was cool. But other than that, everything that happened in between, I was just like, I mean, some people like it because they said how, you know, it shows the, you know, everyday, you know, repetitiveness or something. I don't know. It's just not my thing. So that was the 8 things that I read in the month of August. 8 people. 8. If you have any thoughts on the books that I read, let me know down below. Let's chat about it. Go ahead and follow me on all my social media that I have linked down below, and while you're down there, you can just go ahead and subscribe if you want to stick around. Why not? Why not? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.